Leslie. Hello, Sherry and Lee. I know you're watching together. Melissa, Charity, Maria, we are so excited to have you with us. And there will be some other people inevitably chiming in, signing on in a few minutes as we get going. But we're so excited to be here with you. My name is Kelsey.
And I'm Mike.
And we are just grateful that you decided to spend an hour of your evening with us here on the couch. We're
this
literally
is our couch.
on our couch in our living room.
This is the sweatshirt I would be wearing if I was on my couch on a normal Tuesday evening. So this is it. This is us. You are you. And you might be like, wait, what is this? What is the couch? Why am I here? Well, here's what this is all about. This is the couch, because I believe that if you are doing work to build God's kingdom in any way, I don't think you need another conference. I don't think you need a webinar. What you need, if I were to guess, is just to feel not alone and to feel like you can have a safe place to just talk about those issues that come up as we do just faith-led kingdom stuff. It can get messy, it can get difficult, and you don't always have a safe place to kind of just hash those things out. Enter the couch. That's why we're here. We're going to be having conversations every month, just like this, and we're excited that you are here to be able to just join in on these conversations. So this is not going to be a transactional thing. There's not at any point are we going to be like, well, so that was that information. Now, if you want to buy something, then there's nothing to buy.
Nope.
So you don't have to keep your guard up against any sales things. It's just a conversation, and if this is touching to you, we'll invite you to more conversations. Deal? Yeah. So
I want to welcome Missy and Ashley, just signed on. Excited to have you here. Welcome. We're excited to see you. It is my incredible pleasure to introduce this month's guest. Of course, every month on the couch, we have another guest join us, because Mike and I have like a lot of ideas, but we would run out and you would get real bored of hearing from us all the time. And so we invite a guest to hang out on our couch with us every single month and bring their expertise, bring their experience to the couch. This month, I'm really genuinely excited. So it starts with this story of we had a guest scheduled for the September couch since I think like May.
Since we started.
Right. And it's been, I think, since May. And last week we were confirming everything, and he ended up, for his reasons, having to not be here tonight. And I did not even have time to worry about what was going to happen before our guest had reached out to me and said, hey, is there going to be an opportunity for me to come and talk on the couch? And Charity in the comments just said, insert God moment. 100%, Charity. You are so right.
I'm a big believer in those interruptions, right? Those things where you make a plan and then those plans change. And instead of getting all worried and frustrated, what if we lean into that and see, okay, what's God trying to do? What's God trying to tell me? What's a new opportunity that I had not thought of? And here we are.
So I am just a firm believer that the emails coming in simultaneously to me, the way this is all panned out, Kristin having the evening available and willingness to rearrange her schedule a little bit and be here with us. I am just a firm believer that if you're here, if you are watching, God has something for you. And I'm not trying to be prophetic. I just genuinely believe it. I just believe that the way I saw this evening come together, I cannot deny that I think God is in it. I think God has planned it. I think God has planned for you to be here. I think God has planned for Kristin to be here. And so I'm excited to have her. So Kristin and I have gotten to know each other and really bonded over just this desire to build businesses, build work, and serve people in a way that isn't playing games, that isn't focused on worldly success, whatever that looks like, but is focused on Jesus, that is really focused on our life work, glorifying him and serving other people while we're doing it. And so we've really bonded over that over the last several months. She's a very dear friend of mine. She's very special, very close to my heart, and I love her dearly. She is a coach. She's an author. She is a oh gosh, I do not know how to say this word. Conciliator. She works with groups of people, individuals and churches and families to find reconciliation and conciliation. Gosh, she's going to have to correct me when she gets on here.
She's here to talk about this.
But she works with schools, families, churches, leadership to bring about peace in relationships. And that is what she is all about. So we are really excited to welcome Kristin Lawrence to the couch. Kristin, come on over. There you go. I practiced my intro for you, and then I totally just
you did fine. No, you did.
How do you say the word that I was trying to say?
You said it. Conciliation.
There we go. Kristin, I'm so excited that you're here. Kristin is all the way over in California. I say all the way over because we are in New Hampshire. She and I could not be on further coasts from each other. So I'm curious, everybody in the chat who's here, I would love to know where you're chiming in from. I know it's a classic virtual meeting thing, but I would just love to hear where people are from because I think that's so interesting. We've got Georgia, Minnesota, Indiana, Connecticut, Ohio, Mississippi. The MS's, man. MO is Missouri. MS is Mississippi. So
there's
good to see you, Brent. Super excited to have you here, Brent, from Mississippi. Sorry, I said your state wrong. I truly apologize. But yeah, all over the Midwest, we've got a lot of people. We're like if Kristin and we are the sandwich, then all of you guys are the good filling in the middle that's going to make this delicious.
That's
Welcome to DC. There we go. Awesome. Good to have you, Leslie.
And we've got people here on church staff. We've got people here who are authors and coaches and artists and people who volunteer for ministries or churches, all sorts of people here who are all just trying to build God's kingdom. We're so thankful that you're here and a part of this. And you belong and you're wanted here and you're welcome here. Let's kick this off with some prayer, shall we?
Yeah.
And then we'll just dig into this. It's going to be a good time. Awesome. God, thank you so much for this time. Thank you for every person here joining us on this couch. I just pray that it'd be a comfortable place, a place of peace tonight, and a place where we can just get to know each other a little bit better, get to know you a little bit better, and maybe even ourselves a little bit better tonight. Excited about that. And thank you so much for bringing us all here. Pray that you'll make much of it. Amen.
Amen. So when you and I started talking about the couch and what we would be discussing here, what kind of content we could bring together, what kind of conversation we could have, you said immediately, I want to talk about letting emotions in the room. And I was immediately intrigued just with your language, just with that phrase in and of itself. But I would love to just kick this off, Kristin, with why is it so important to talk about emotions? Because as I was thinking about this, I'm going to let you answer in a second. As I was thinking about it, I had to admit, I think the last time I learned about emotions or looked into understanding emotions was when my child was 6 or 7 and off the charts on the temper tantrums and just trying to figure out how to control her emotions and how to teach her about emotions.
We just put into a yard sale a book called "Take the Grr Out of Anger." So that's where we're at. So I'm sure there's people here who are so what do we, as adults, supposed to talk about emotions? In fact, can we run a poll right now? What comes to mind when we say, hey, let's talk about emotions? Let's start this poll. Are you ooh, bring it on? Are you oh boy, is this going to hurt? Or you're okay, I'm skeptical, maybe in the right condition, the right people. Some people, or I'm already crying. We've got people who are that. I'm in it. I'm already crying. I'm very comfortable. What comes to mind when we talk about emotions here? We got a lot of people saying, bring it on. A couple people being oh boy, please be gentle. and someone's already crying. So
I promise you, knowing Kristin, you're in good hands. She will not call you out or make you do anything that you're super uncomfortable with, but ready to lean in and be challenged at the same time. So thanks for participating in that. So Kristin,
Sherry says B, C, and D right now. She's all of the above.
I'm literally already crying.
Very emotional right there. I'm fighting this light. Oh my goodness. I'm usually not
You're just dazzling.
I know. right.
You're not usually here at this time of day. So
no, it's moving quickly though, so we'll be all right.
There you go.
So, Kristin, to go back to our question then, why is it important for us as adults to talk about emotions? We'll start there.
Well, it's good to talk about emotions whether you're an adult or not, but let me back one step and just start by saying life is about relationship. And so we could probably just hang up now because that's really the takeaway. Life is all about relationship. And as believers, we see this example to us through the Trinity. God already showed us what it is to do life. And that is he did it with the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And so if we are, buy into that we are to become like God as much as we can, or Christ, right? To be Christ-like, that just means that we're to be in relationship with others. And then also right from the very beginning, God said, it is not good for man to be alone. That's the first time he said something wasn't good about his creation, right? And it was so that he could make Eve. So Adam didn't have to be alone. And so it was in that very moment that God declared that we were made to share life with others. Now, that's beautiful, right? But my question always is, now as an adult, is that it doesn't make any sense. Because if God made us to do life with others, then it should be a little easier than it is.
If that's how life should work, shouldn't it work better?
God made fruit, and it's pretty tasty stuff, right? And so we can eat it. But so he made others so that we can do life with them, so we don't have to be alone. And sometimes all we want to do is go be alone, because I am not going to be around one more stinking person who causes me pain. So it doesn't really, to me, it doesn't make sense. I don't know about you guys, but on the flip side of that is when we are getting along with others, when we are in any context, whether it's in marriage, in your work, in your parenting, extended family, even with God, when those relationships are good, life just seems so much better. It just seems like it clicks and it flows, and we know where we're going, and we know what we're doing, and we're good with it. And so I just always ask, why can't we just live that way? It just doesn't make any sense to me why we can't just stay there. Well, because, I deal with emotions in my work. I think it's because we don't understand emotions, but they play such a big part in the health of our relationships. But we're not taught about them. I grew up with a single mom. My dad died before I was born. And so that left my mom alone to raise two girls. And she was already sad because she lost her husband, and she was going to do life alone now with us. And nobody was there to walk her through what that sadness was. Like, you can be angry and you can be sad and not sin. Right? I think, especially for believers, we think, oh, we can't have these emotions because it's sinful.
I think that's great for someone right now is like, oh, wait a minute. That's some truth I needed to hear already. That's good.
Like the positive emotions are the Christ-like emotions, and the negative emotions are things we need to run away from and hide, or
because it means you don't trust, or it means that you're selfish or something like that.
Right. Yeah. But again, it was exampled in the Bible. There's anger. Jesus was angry, but he didn't sin. He just spoke truth. He knew what the truth was, and he spoke it. And he called people out, which is super uncomfortable for us to do, right? Partly because we don't know what the truth is, because we don't spend time diving into what the truth is. But But yeah, he was angry. He was sad and he cried. It's okay to have that side of the spectrum, have those emotions. You're not sinning in those emotions. Now we can, and I'm going to show you how in just a little bit.
I just want to highlight what you said, though, just now, is we don't call people out because we don't know what the truth is. I just don't want to skip over that because I think that's a little gold nugget. That's hard to deal with, and that's a challenge to us to know that in our relationships, if you have someone you need to approach or you need to communicate with, and it's really, really hard, it might be because you're not really sure what truth to bring into that conversation with that relationship. I'm just soaking up that right now. I'm just soaking it up and writing notes.
Maria is sharing her experience here. She says, it's so hard as a previous women's minister who still ministers to the women around me to get them to trust that I accept their emotions. My heart breaks all the time because I know they're lonely and angry and bitter and frustrated, and they don't receive healing because they're too ashamed to talk about it.
Yes.
And deal with it.
Oh, that is such a big factor, is the trust that I can bring my shame, which is another feeling or emotion, right? I can bring my shame and trust you with it. And we see that all the time in ministry. People are there one day, and then the next week you don't see them again for months and months, and you don't know why. And you say, well, where were you? What's been going on? Well, either we were sick and we didn't want to bother anybody, or actually I went through a divorce and, just didn't feel like I belonged here anymore because of that. And it's really hard to example trust in that area when you don't get the opportunity to.
And it almost seems like when we're going through those very difficult times where the negative emotions really are the driving emotions in any given time, that's when we end up pulling away and pulling back from people because we don't want to be a burden, or we don't want to bring the room down, or we have all these stories in our minds of what bringing those negative emotions are going to do. And it traps us, like Maria was saying, it traps us from being free of those things because we're not talking about it, which is why I love that you're here right now helping us talk about these emotions, Kristin. This is so good.
Yeah, it's super. Actually, it's really fun. Once you start to really grasp what emotions are and understand where they come from, which we can talk about.
Yeah. Let's talk about that.
Yeah,
where does it come from? Let's define this. What are emotions? Because we're all coming in here having our own thoughts of what we've come in with some definition of an emotion when we signed up to be here tonight. Yeah. So Kristin, why don't you help us define what emotions are, where they've come from, so we're talking from the same point of view.
All right. Well, let's do this from an experiential point of view.
Great.
And do a little experience.
Great.
Okay. So it's an exercise. This is the coach in me. I can't help but bring experiences because I think that's the best way we can.
You are ready just let Kristin know in the chat that you're ready to do this experience with her. Kristin, you're not going to make anybody super uncomfortable or like call us out, but like,
no, I will call you out.
Let's do something together. Yeah. Lisa says, let's do it. Awesome.
All right.
Love it.
So do it with me or else you're going to get lost. Okay. So just trust me, close your eyes. And I know I can't see you guys. So I'm just going to trust that y'all are closing your eyes and just listen. So let me take you back to your youth. So sometime between elementary school and high school. Okay. And think of a bad interaction you had with someone. So nothing super traumatizing. I'm not equipped to take you there or to help you out of that situation at this moment. But maybe just a simple interaction, maybe with a parent or a teacher, didn't respond well to you. Maybe you witnessed some bullying. Just get that interaction in your memory. Bring it up. Kind of relive it for just a few minutes. And as you're thinking about that experience, what's happening in your body as you're thinking about that? Do you notice anything shifting in your physical being? Okay. Now we're going to shift our thinking to a good experience. Again, sometime between elementary school and high school. Think of a good experience. Who is it with? What were you doing in this good experience? And as you're thinking about that experience, what's happening in your body? You notice anything different? Anything shifting? Okay. You can open your eyes and return to the room. So if anybody's brave, you can put it in the comments, or you can unmute yourself, ask to grab the mic. Let me know what were you experiencing during that time?
I would love to invite anyone who is feeling brave, feeling ready to help others by sharing what they've experienced. There's a little button with a microphone on your screen that says grab the mic. And if you grab that, you'll be invited to turn on your camera and microphone and talk to Kristin right here, live. This is not a webinar. This is not pre-recorded. We're here in person right now. If that is something that would be helpful to you to talk to Kristin through that experience you just walked us through, go ahead and grab the mic. We'll let you up here. But Mike, what did you experience?
Now, in the meantime, you can also pop it in the chat.
Just put it in the chat.
Whatever your experience was.
Sure.
I remember. So I was thinking of a negative emotion of jealousy. I remember there, like in 6th grade, there was a girl I liked, and and it just, but like she was hanging out with other people, and I just remember having those kind of emotions. And as far as what that felt like, well, I'm not jealous anymore, being happily married, but I did feel just kind of like my brain was kind of scattered, just trying to. I just felt scattered, and I think I even kind of physically kind of closed off like this, and then switching to the more positive memory of I drew pictures, and my teacher in 6th grade highlighted those pictures by allowing me to post them on the wall of her classroom, and that was really empowering for her. And physically, it was more relaxing, and I think I shifted my posture. I was aware that I kind of opened up again at that point. So that was my experience.
Mm-hmm. That's perfect. Yeah, that's exactly what's supposed to happen, Mike.
Good. You did.
I have another positive memory. I did a good job.
You did it.
Melissa Norris here says, I felt a second of anger remembering, but then felt peace. Remembering a positive made me feel warm, smiling, and pleasant.
Yes. Yeah. Awesome.
I think I literally, with the negative memory, I felt myself like literally just kind of like closing in, like to exaggerate it was like I was just like hunching over and like closing in. And then with the positive memory, I felt like I just sat up straighter and I expanded, and I think I felt a smile coming on my face. And Missy says she felt weighted in the negative memory. That's a good way to put it. That's how I felt too. Jen says, I remembered a time in middle school when this popular boy was calling me a name I didn't even know what it meant. Basically being bullied, and my physical body tonight even felt scared and embarrassed. Then I remembered a time in high school on the softball team being a captain and feeling proud, and tonight felt a smile come to my face. Jen, thank you for sharing those stories. That's incredible.
Yeah. All of those things are so amazing. So those feelings that you had, the quick anger or the embarrassment, just the weightedness, those are the emotions. So emotions are nothing else besides physiological reactions in your body.
Hmm.
So that's what an emotion is. Now, since emotions are physiological reactions to stimuli, they're built into us. That's how God made us. And when we feel those things, then that's our opportunity to say, oh, wait, something's different. I need to pay attention. What is it? And so then we could do the hard work to start to put descriptor words to it. And when we start to put descriptor words to it, like the shame or anger, then that starts to turn into a feeling. Okay, so there's the two different distinctions. So one is the emotion, which it shows up in our body. We call that somatic experiences. We feel it in our senses. And then the feeling is the descriptor word to the physiological reaction.
Wow. That definition too, Kristin, really takes blame and shame off of emotions. If it's a physiological reaction, it cannot be right or wrong. There is no morality tied to a physiological reaction any more than if I fall and get the wind knocked out of me. That's not any moral right or wrong thing. It's just what my body did in response to what I experienced physically. So I hope that's freeing for somebody too, that the emotions are neither right or wrong. They are physiological reaction. And then redefining, I'll admit, I would have thought before this moment, feelings and emotions, I would have defined them as the same thing. And so you're really describing those as two different things, the emotion being the physiological reaction. And once we attach a meaning or a word or a name to that thing, then that becomes a feeling. Am I understanding correctly?
Yes. Yep.
Cool.
And so we have these experiences like we do in childhood. Even today, I mean, as adults, we have experiences all the time with other people. And it's in those experiences, they start to develop narratives, whether we know it or not. It's usually like buried deep inside the stories that we're telling ourselves, right? But those narratives are always accompanied by a physiological reaction. So when you're walking, say, this has happened to me tons of times, because just because I'm a conflict professional doesn't mean I don't have conflict. I probably have more conflict than other people because I can't keep my mouth shut. But so if you have an interaction with someone, say at church, and you're going to church the next week or a month from then, and you haven't resolved the issue, then you're like, you kind of see them across the room and you get this feeling in yourself. Well, that's the emotion, right? But there's always a narrative that accompanies that emotion. Whether it's they're stupid, I'm stupid, I feel ashamed, I'm not enough, I don't know, I'm not worth their time. Say someone brushed you off and you didn't check in to see if they really brushed you off or not. I know you and I, Kelsey, have talked about how we should take somebody's, reaction to our thing, whatever we just said or did. But if we don't check in, we will create a narrative around it, and we will have a physiological reaction that will actually turn us away and say, we're going to avoid that person.
Well, it goes back to what you had said when defining emotions and feelings, that triggers you that something's different and I need to do something with it, is what I had written down from what you said. Something's different and I need to do something with it. So that then becomes the choice of like, how are we going to respond to this emotion? Like, how are we going to respond to this reaction? And that then brings in the narrative. The what am I going to do with it is what story am I going to tell from here? What narrative am I believing in? What narrative am I going to live in? At this moment? Seems like that's connected.
It is.
Yeah.
It's very connected. Yeah. And so the part that keeps people away from us then, that not trusting us, not coming back, is because we oftentimes want to stay in that state because we don't really know what to do to push through it, to come out on the other side. And usually the person on the other side that creates that bad experience for us, creates the hurt, creates the pain. We live in the flesh a lot, and we want them to hurt as much as we hurt, is kind of the reality. And so if we keep ourselves from moving through it, then there's a chance that other person is going to have to account for the pain and feel the pain just as much as we are. But that's not the way it works.
I think that tees up Ashley's question here. She's asking, can you differentiate emotional response from anger and envy that Jesus mentions in the Sermon on the Mount? Can you talk to us, Kristin, about the emotions of anger and jealousy and envy? When does that become a sin issue? Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so it becomes a sin issue when you use it not for good. So Christ was angry, but he used it. He was a just God in it, right? He didn't like what people did in the temple by trading, and not giving the due respect to the space that they were in. And so he did turn tables, right? If some people go, oh, but he was angry and he did sin because he turned tables. Well, he was acting out of justice in that space. So and we're going to talk about it in a little bit, what it looks like to use an emotion in a sinful way, and where it leads us. So I don't really know exactly what the question wants to be answered, but it might be answered later.
Let's just keep digging in and see if some clarity comes from just continuing to dig in. So we have experienced kind of what this emotion is, and defined kind of the emotions and feelings as these interplaying elements. What do we do with that? What do we do with it?
Good question. So emotions have two dynamics, and my friends at Relational Wisdom had taught me this. Emotions have two dynamics. The first one is the awareness. So something is happening in me, and I'm going to put a word to it to describe it, right? I'm angry, I'm jealous, I'm happy or sad, right? Any of those descriptor words. And then the second dynamic is the engagement. So it's, what am I going to do with what I know? So I know that something is up because my body's reacting, and I'm sort of putting a word to it to describe it so I can gain some understanding. So what am I going to do with what I know? I could sin, and I could lash out at the person. I could lash back at them, or I can take a breath and I could drum up some empathy, and I can be in this interaction with them and try to gauge what's really happening, right? And there's it's so funny. So there's two ways God made our brains so intricately, which just proves the point why we're just learning about the brain now, millions of years after we've all started here. I don't really know how many years. I just said millions. Don't fault my theology.
It's been a minute though since God created our brains, and we're still just hitting the surface.
Just scratching the surface. So our brains, information comes in through the brainstem, and the very first stop is the amygdala. So we have two little beans on each side of our brain called the amygdala, and information always passes through there first. And that's the emotional part of our brain that tells us fight or flight, if we're safe or not, what do we need to do? But the problem is the amygdala is a very strong part of our brain, and it could hijack the rest of our brain from working. And so what I mean by that is that if the information gets stuck here in our amygdala, then it can't travel, make all the little swirly cues up to the front of our brain, which is where we make reason. And so if amygdala starts to hijack our brain, it's sucking all the blood, all the oxygen from other parts of our brain, and it wants it all for itself because it wants to do what it wants to do. And we have no control over it in the moment unless we start to talk about it, which is why we're here today. If you are empowered by information, by wisdom, you can do something about it.
So talking about it actually like relieves that pressure, basically. It all clears up the bandwidth in your brain.
I mean, I think so. Don't you feel kind of lighter? You could go talk to your daughter about emotions a little bit better right now, can't you?
Yeah, that actually goes back to what Ashley had mentioned in the chat earlier. She was saying, I was my mom's emotional support person at a young age, and it was a burden. And in the right context, it's not burdensome, but it can be if you don't puke up, she says. And it seems like that's what our amygdala needs, is to just puke up those emotions sometimes that just gets built up.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So, and then the second thing that happens in our brains is called flooding. So we have the hijacking where our amygdala is taking over and it's just killing the rest of our brain from making reason. And then we have flooding, which is just this space that we're just inundated all day long. I see this with pastors. I see this with teachers. I see this with moms and dads who have their kids home, well, especially the last 3 years, we've kind of had our kids home like all the time. And we're just flooded. We're just inundated with all this information, with all these emotions in the room. And, Mike, you and I were both 9s on the Enneagram. So we are always managing other people's emotions. And then all of a sudden it just wells up and we go, "Whoa, like, get away from me, everybody. I need to rest because I don't even know why. I'm just feeling not myself." But that's because we're flooded. Our brain has had too much input and we didn't do anything with it while it was coming in. And so a way to resolve that massive explosion of emotion is to stay present and take time to understand what's happening throughout the day so that you can figure out where to put it.
I know I'm not the only one who relates to that flooding. Anyone else feel that? Mm-hmm. Feels like, oh yeah, that's especially at the end of the day, even like this for many people, for the end of the day, just feeling tired and can't even put a finger on it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Oh yes. I'm glad. Well, I mean, I'm glad we're not alone, but I'm not glad that we have to feel this way, So something that I've done over the years is I prepare myself when I walk into a room now, or if I'm with all of my family at one time, I walk into any situation and I tell myself purposefully, only be responsible for your own emotions. So then if they want to get into it, if they look uncomfortable, then I could just say, "Are you okay?" And if not, if they don't want to talk about it, then it's not on me. It's not for me to dig into it or to hold it for them or protect them or get them through it. They got to figure it out on their own. Since I've been doing that, my life has been so much better because I'm not exhausted at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I'm not carrying that for everybody. So, yeah. So if you're feeling that, give it a try.
So what is then the relationship between emotions and conflict? How does that come into play? And how can we start managing these emotions in a way that betters our relationships? I know that's a huge question, and that's like your whole life's works that we can't answer in the next 20 minutes. But how can we start engaging with that and progressing in that area?
Yeah. So the first thing is to absolutely just pay attention. When your body is doing something that it's not normal for it to be doing, whether it's getting hot or your breathing is increasing, you're sweating, you're feeling like gut punched or something, tightness in your throat, your shoulders are going up or you're crossing or something that's a little different from, a few moments ago, just pause and start paying attention and try to put some words to it. Why am I having this feeling? And what's the story that I'm telling myself in it? And then, is it true? Is that story true? I mean, 9 times out of 10, the story's untrue or it's not a full truth, because it does take two people to have conflict. So are you fully responsible? No. Are they fully responsible? No. But if you are, say, 3% part of that conflict, you are 100% responsible for that 3%.
Mm-hmm.
Hands down. So for us to say, you go look at your 99% and, well, actually, let me help you look at it. That's not helpful. Well, I don't know about you, but anytime I've told my husband, oh, let me tell you about yourself,
it doesn't
work. And it doesn't work on me either. I don't like to hear bad things about myself.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to tell each other bad things about ourselves. We already know. We know this. We know the dumb bonehead stuff we do.
Yeah. Yep,
well, boys are boneheaded, but girls.
So paying attention, asking ourselves, what's the story that I'm believing here? And then asking, is that story even true? And you have used a word in some of our interactions, the idea of relational failure in relationship to emotions. Can you kind of talk about that for a moment?
Yeah. So if you want, you could put that. I gave Kelsey a little visual for that. And this is, again, it's a visual from my friends at relationalwisdom.com or .org. And they say, so at the top, you have a trigger. And this is poor communication, a misunderstanding, a conflicting agendas, whatever it is, it's this trigger. And it sends us, again, we have this physiological reaction. It sends us to be on the offensive, right? We want things our way. I'm sorry. We're just people. We want things our way. So we dig in, and then if we're not getting what we want, then we start to get defensive, right? We could start out well, but then we start to really say, hey, I want what I want, and you're in my way, and I'm going to take you down. Then, the response to that from other people usually isn't very good, is it? And so they start to get angry. And then we respond with anger. And then we start to see ourselves as the victim. And we start to get critical, because when you get stuck in that space, in that little turn, that victim critical space, man, it's like a broken record, and it's really hard to get out of it. I'm not saying that, I'm not judging here. It's just is what it is. It's hard to get out of it. But then after, once we stay in there too long, we get confused. We don't know which way is up. Our emotions get out of control. We start to be overwhelmed. We lose that hopelessness. And then once hopelessness is gone, our heart gets hard. And then what happens? If our heart is hard, we can't receive forgiveness. We can't hear the other person trying to make amends with us or try to hear God. I mean, that's the first and foremost. A lot of times we don't have reconciliation, which is with two people. We can sometimes only forgive. And that is a lot of work that we do with God and ourselves. And it doesn't have anything to do with the other person. Yeah. So that's where we end up once our heart is so hard, we have this relational failure. We leave churches, we leave jobs, we leave friends or get divorced, and this is what happens because we just couldn't get ourselves out of this spiral.
This looks like a really one-way track, like the worst water slide ever. Looking at this little graphic. Kristin, so what can we do? Like, is there at any point of these on this track that there's no turning back, or is there always hope to turn around? What do you, how do we not just keep going down this?
Yeah,
because I think everyone here is probably thinking of some relationship and where they are on that track and thinking, okay, yeah, I'm there. Mm-hmm. I can see myself going there. I don't want to. So what can we do?
Yeah. Well, you're here for one thing. You're becoming aware of possibilities. And so just understanding that this can be a thing that, I mean, if you're listening and you're really, diving into this with us in this time, it'll stick with you. You'll feel it when your body starts to react. You're not going to be able to ignore it anymore. I'm so sorry. That's how I messed up your life.
Sorry, not sorry. Kristin's changed your life.
I know. And then, so there's always hope. I think, Mike, there's always hope. At least I am, and I'm not like a hopeful, like romantic or anything like that. It's nothing like that. I just believe that there's always hope. And it may not be that you have reconciliation or you, if you're separated, that you miraculously get back together, because it does take both of you. But like I had a really good friend who found out during the COVID time that her husband was having an affair on her. And it was in the reaction that she had that saved the marriage. So she had the way out. She had, I can say I can go now because, technically that's what the Bible says. It says we can leave if there's infidelity, and you won't be held accountable for that. So she could leave, but she didn't see it that way. She just had pity on this man, and she just knew that she didn't want the enemy to win, right? And so along any of this way, that's why I love to do this under the umbrella of our faith, because I don't want to see the enemy win in anybody's relationship. Yeah. And in fact, under this roof, if we feel like the enemy is coming in to seek, kill, and destroy, and he's getting close to winning, we're like, no way. We're not letting him win, because we are Christ's. And so that alone helps us to say, okay, I'm going to put this critical spirit aside. It helps me to say out loud, I am really confused in this moment. I can't have this conversation with you. I need to come back to it. Is that okay? And then just being, it just releases a lot of the pressures that we feel, going back all the way to the beginning of that question around how do we get people to trust us with their sin, with their pain, with their guilt, and it's just taking time to be real with people.
Yeah. I'm hearing kind of a lot of the themes we've talked about so far, even coming together. I love what Jen said in the chat of inviting God into that water slide is crucial. And it's to look at it again, like just to look at that water slide again. Like God can enter in any point of this thing.
Any point.
There is no point, even complete relational failure. Yeah. Because that's what we as humankind has done with him. We had complete relational failure. Our heart was completely hard against him. And that is why he had to come, and Jesus had to come and die on the cross and be raised again to versus that relational failure. And so
I'm just looking at every one of those
words,
and Bible verses are coming to mind, and I don't know the chapter and verse for all of them, but I know with hardness, God softens the hearts of stone. Hopelessness, he is a God of hope. Overwhelmed, he invites you to share your burdens with him. Confused, he offers wisdom and understanding. If you're feeling like a victim, he is close to those who are brokenhearted. Just every step, there's some sort of aspect of his personality that is for you.
Even defensive, he is the Lord fights for me. We don't have to fight for ourselves. All of those things, all the way up the track, and maybe we'll dig into some of those Bible verses and send them out in an email later on, and just kind of walk scripture through all of those pieces. But so what I was hearing you say though, Kristin, is not only are we inviting God into each piece of this, wherever we find ourselves here in our relationships, first and foremost, inviting God into it, but then also saying it out loud. That's what stuck out to me of what you just said, Kristin, is saying, hey, I'm confused right now, so I'm going to walk away. Naming that emotion, saying it out loud, I think removes some of the power of that emotion. It kind of, we start talking about it to release it from that amygdala. We're like, hey, I see you. I recognize you. You don't have power over me. We're going to speak it out. We're going to put it out there. We're going to puke it out, as Ashley was saying. And then also what I feel like that does when we speak out that emotion, when we're honest with the other people, that like, hey, I'm confused right now and I can't talk about this. It draws empathy out from others and allows us to get out of that, the very beginning of that relational failure model. It allows us to escape the offensive and defensive position if we can just right at the front be like, hey, we're having this conversation and I'm feeling really confused. I'm feeling really overwhelmed, or I'm feeling really like I'm really angry right now, and I really would just like to walk away and come back to this later. Speaking it out. Because I'm not angry with you right now. I'm using you as an example.
Okay.
Were we in a conflict? It would be helpful.
That's what it would sound like.
It would be helpful to speak it to you and say, this is how I'm feeling right now, and I need to like come back to this maybe later. But by speaking it out, it removes the power of that feeling.
I think so, because you're inviting them, like if you actually did that in a conflict or in a high moment of stress with somebody else there, you're actually inviting them in to do life with you at that moment. And I mean, the first couple of times you try it, it doesn't work in the moment. So you have to have these conversations before you have conflict. So, go away and talk with your significant other or your child or your coworkers or whoever you need to have a conversation with. Hey, when conflict comes up, let's try this thing. And if one of us says they're confused, they're overly angry, or they just don't know what's happening, can't make sense of it, hey, let's just respect when they say, time out. And then get back to it.
Yeah.
The worst thing is when you call time out and you never get back to it. Then it's layering on.
This is going to fester. And the next thing is going to layer on. The next thing is going to layer on. There's obviously not enough time to dig into all of this and all the ways that you've researched and worked to help people walk through these emotions. So I would love to just, in these last few minutes we have together, if you have a specific question for Kristin, if you came here like with something on your heart or on your mind or something that she's said throughout this conversation that's like, I'm still confused about this, or I don't know really what to do with this, now's a great time to throw that in the chat or even grab the mic and have a conversation with Kristin right here and right now. I want to give you the chance to kind of gather your thoughts and think through questions that you might have for Kristin. But while you do that, I want to share a resource that Kristin has made available for you. She wrote a book called Understanding Conflict. It is a digital book. And The website that you're going to see is A Relationship Guide for the Christian Woman. If you're not a woman, this is still for you. The book itself says Changing the Way We Respond in Our Most Important Relationships. And so I'm sharing that link in the chat right now. I would encourage you to go download that book, engage with some of this content, spend a little bit more time with it. I believe these conversations are so valuable to start these conversations, to start us thinking about these, to bring in that awareness piece, like you were talking about earlier, Kristin, make us aware of what is happening in our minds and in our bodies so that we can start having these conversations. But it's going to take a little bit more work. It's going to take some follow-up. And so that digital book from Kristin is a wonderful gift and will definitely bless you in your relationships. If you're looking for more help understanding conflict, and that is from her group, the We Sojourners coaching community that she has developed. So,
yeah.
Kristin, where else can people interact with you and contact and keep going, keep having conversations with you? If they want to follow you, where can they find you on Instagram or Facebook? Where are you for people?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. That's where I'm most active because I don't really like Facebook, even though they're the same. I just like the platform better. And it's just Kristin_Lawrence_. But I have dark hair, COVID kind of like changes us. Just let the puppies go. And so I have dark hair on that profile picture, but it's still me.
The underscores didn't translate when I typed it, but it's literally at Kristin.
Kristin with 2 eyes.
That's correct. I'm a 10 out of 10. So I'm interested in watching the time here. Charity said she's stuck in overwhelm, and I don't know if you mean, if Charity, you meant like on this continuum, you're stuck in overwhelmed. And that is what, now that you're saying that, you have to ask yourself, what am I willing to do about it? And it isn't for anybody to tell you what to do. So don't ever, if somebody just wants to jump in and tell you what to do, just run the other way because they don't know you. They're speaking from their own experience. Okay. But I would say, once you can say something like that, I'm stuck in the overwhelmed, that is a perfect time that you can invite others in to just listen. And I tell my friends this all the time. I don't want you to fix me. Just please listen to me. And in the process of talking it out, you can hear things that are deep down inside that you didn't know were there. And you invite those people in. So again, life is all about relationship, and God has made us to be in relationship with others. And part of it is to just listen to others. And if that means we have to be very focused on them and say, very pointed and say, just listen to me. It's not mean. It's just a fact that that's all you need at this moment. So talk it out. Find somebody that you can say that. Maybe it's just your dog. I've talked to my dog so much.
They're good counselors, aren't they?
They are.
Kristin, I'm so grateful that you have been here and spent your time with us this evening.
Can we pop in the chat? What has been most valuable from this conversation? What is your takeaway? We're going to wrap this up. We're going to head into the rest of the evening and beyond. What's one thing that you're taking with you? Pop it in the chat.
Kristin can't see your faces. Kristin can't meet every single one of you like she would like to. So just let her know in the chat what you found valuable during this time together. I would love to hear from each and every one of you.
I think my takeaway was with the amygdala, honestly, about the hijacking that goes on and the flooding, and just recognizing that is an effect of what can happen, and I've noticed in this conversation, just the awareness of the emotion, or the awareness of what your brain is, how your brain is responding, is power. And I think that's one thing that we can walk away from here. Let's see what are, enough of me talking. What is everyone else saying? Charity says, I don't need you to solve it. I just need you to listen. That's going to be her mantra as she goes into these conversations with people that she needs to talk to. Lisa says she's going to use some of this to train her new team.
There you go.
Great.
That's awesome.
Lisa is another women's ministry director. We have a couple of those here. Maybe you can connect here tonight and encourage each other. Mm-hmm. Melissa says, take notice when I'm having a physical reaction. What is the truth? What's the story I'm believing? And Jen loves noting the difference between the word emotion and the word feeling, and that there is a very real difference.
That's good.
That's good.
Cool. Thank you, guys. The next creative couch that we have in October, we are really excited because we just confirmed with our guest for October what topic he wants to talk on. And you will not believe it. He was like, I really want to dig into emotional intelligence. And we're like, well, that just piggybacked perfectly on this conversation. So as we've now kind of defined what emotions are here and defined like how those are affecting us, come back next month to talk with a man named Billy Dunn, who is
he's a
consultant for leaders and has helped countless nonprofits and churches walk through seasons of change and consulted leaders to be more effective. And he is super passionate about emotional intelligence. So we're going to be digging into that as we've kind of teed that up here. We're going to keep that going.
And talking about how what we've learned today we can now apply in the realm of empathy, and how can we place ourselves in other people's
and level up as leaders.
Yeah, that's good.
So the we're running over, and I apologize. I didn't know. Apparently, I don't know how to run a 1 hour meeting.
No, that's my fault. You just blame it on me.
No, it's not at all. And I am. I think you're fantastic. But
we're gonna pop a link in here for you if you are like, oh yeah, talk to me about empathy. Talk to me. I'm a leader. I want to know more about how to empathize with my team, how to level up my leadership, how to raise my emotional intelligence quotient, my EQ. We're going to talk about that next month.
You can register for that right
And there's a link. We just popped in the link. You can check it out. Also, before we got a couple of next steps for people. If you feel like, okay, now what? I've had these emotions. Now I need to talk about them. We got some next steps. While we talk about those, let's start this group feed. This is just a tradition we do here on the couch. It's like a selfie, but instead of a picture of yourself, it's a picture of the group. So we're going to start this. It's going to invite you to turn your camera on, and I'm going to go over to my computer.
Take your picture and it'll add it to the group feed. This is super fun. But next steps for you might include downloading Kristin's book, reading that book, and digging in more with some of her content. Follow Kristin on Instagram and just dig in more with the work that she is doing. Secondly, we are going to, since we did shorten these couch events to 1 hour, it kind of took away some of the maybe one-on-one time or the breakout sessions. So we're actually adding in another touch point between the monthly gatherings of these couches. I will be sending out more information about that in emails and in our Facebook group. If you're not part of the Facebook group yet, find us at the Church Creative Couch community. And there will be more information about that coming out. But we're really excited to add just a few more touch points at different times of day so that more people can engage with us and we can just have a little bit more community throughout the month. We are really excited to continue chatting with you. And if you don't even want to wait for that next lunchtime together, if you don't want to wait for that, we would love to get together with you on a one-on-one call and start uncovering some of wow, my brain just shut off. Start uncovering some of the roadblocks that you're having to reaching those goals that God has for you, the vision that God's placed on your heart. If you are struggling to see a way to fulfill the vision that God's given you for your life, we would love to get on a call with you one-on-one. The group fee is done. We're going to see how that ended up looking. This is going to be sent straight to your email inbox. And This is super fun. It's rendering. There we go. Oh, there it is. Yay. Kristin and Mike and me and some of you joined in on that. It's super fun. That'll be in your inbox right after this. Thank you so much for joining us for the Church of Creative Couch this month. Kristin, thank you again for being here. You were fantastic. You're amazing. And we will be in touch with all of you at another time. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you.
Awesome. We'll see you.